Well, hello, everybody. It's your friend James Shaw. Trust you're doing all right. And thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. Every Wednesday we gather inside of the Pivot Shift Ahead Facebook group to, talk about ideas and strategies that agents are doing to win. And we love doing those. In fact, if you ever miss them, you can find them here in Pivot Shift Ahead or go to jamesdshaw.com. jamesdshaw.com, click Agent Interviews, and you'll see all the people I've ever talked to. Well, today we're doing something you asked for us to do, and that is no guest, and you've asked me questions. It's an Ask Me Anything today. We haven't done one of these in almost a year. Our last one was April of 2022. And so we decided to bring it back here this Wednesday. And so a bunch of you sent in some questions. And first of all, I'm honored that you would. Almost 140 questions came in. I'm not going to have time to answer all of them, but maybe we'll do another Ask Me Anything coming up soon. And I'm honored that you would want to ask me some questions, and I'm going to give you the best answers I possibly can. When I created this Facebook group back in March of 2020, so 3 years ago now, I didn't know it was going to become what it became today, but I'm honored to be part of what you do on a regular basis, and I hope that what we talk about today helps you out a little bit. So we'll jump right in. Elaine sent this question, and I love it. I think it's a question a lot of people have. She says, what should the number one priority be every day for an agent? And do not just say lead generation. I want more specifics. So, okay, I'm going to say lead generation, but I'm not going to say lead generation. So I hope that's okay. I think that if you as an agent look, and really anybody, if we want to achieve success in whatever it is that's important to us, it really comes down to one basic thing, and that is your ability and your willingness to follow a schedule. I actually think that following a schedule is more important than doing your lead generation, because if you are dedicated to knowing what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to do it, then your lead generation will get done every day, because you look at that as something that's really important. But following a schedule is about a lot more than doing lead generation, right? It's actually what it's about, and it's something we say inside of Pivot Shift Ahead all the time. What it's about, honestly, is just doing the next right thing, to quote the great movie Frozen 2. It's about doing the next right thing. Your schedule shows you what is the next right thing. And your schedule matters way more than just in your business. Your schedule matters in every aspect of your life. When you go on a vacation, you follow a schedule because your flight leaves at a certain time, whether you're there for it or not. If you're going to see a show on Broadway, the show starts at a certain time, whether you're there for it or not. So following a schedule really is the way you win. And what's fascinating about it is, you followed a schedule almost your entire life as a child. It's as an adult that you got out of following a schedule. When Naomi was born, we just celebrated her 11th birthday. When Naomi was born, we, like any other parent, wanted to get her to sleep through the night as quickly as possible, especially Terry, right? Because Naomi would get up and Terry would get up and go help and take care of Naomi. And I'd always offer, and Terry's like, you can't really do what she wants. And so we wanted to, for just our own peace of mind, be able to get Naomi to sleep through the night as quickly as we could. And so Terry picked up a book that she read. A lot of you probably read books about stuff like this that talked about how to, what you can do to allow your child, to get your child to sleep when you want them to sleep. And within a matter of a handful of days, really, we got her sleeping through the night after picking up that book. That was putting her on a schedule. Then when Terry went back to work and I was working full time, Naomi went to a daycare, and so they would do, you'd feed at certain times, you'd play at certain times, you have nap at certain times. She was on a schedule. Then, excuse me, then she'd grow up and she gets into kindergarten and same thing, they're on a schedule. And then first grade, second grade, third, she's in fifth grade right now. They have science at the same time. They have this at the same time. They have recess, they have lunch, on a schedule. And then next year she's going to be in sixth grade. Now, sixth grade is going to be exciting because this will be the first year that she has to go from classroom to classroom to classroom. And actually what they'll do is they'll give her the schedule. They'll say, here's the schedule, and you're going to go to this class at this time. And when it's over, then the bell's going to ring and you're going to this class, and so on and so forth. And then the school day will end and we'll pick her up. And right now she's got 10 dance classes a week. And so we know what time jazz is. We know what time ballet is. We know what time hip hop. It's a schedule. It's a schedule. And just like you go to high school, same thing happens. And then the bell tells you when to go where and all that kind of stuff. And then you graduate from high school and you find out nobody gives a flip if you follow a schedule anymore. You go to college and yeah, you have classes at certain times, but no one's really sitting there taking attendance, and there's nothing punitive if you don't show up other than your grades not being good. And if your parents aren't paying attention, you don't care that much, you move on. At that point, when you turned 18, you forgot how to follow a schedule. But if you go back to when you were 7, you could follow a schedule. If you could follow a schedule at 7, you can follow a schedule at 45. But what the challenge is that so many of us see in high school and middle school, the bell rang and told you when to go where. But what so many of us have done is we've turned over the bell to other people and say, you tell me. You know, I saw a post the other day that said something really great. And I don't know, I struggle with this. I like to be an inbox zero. I don't like notifications. I don't like text message notifications, social media notifications, email notifications. I don't like any of that stuff. I don't like blinky lights. I don't like opening my phone and seeing I got unread messages. But somebody posted something that got me thinking. It said, when you are one of those people, what you do is you let other people choose what you're going to do every day. You look at your email and you let your email dictate what's going to happen next instead of letting your schedule dictate what's going to happen next. You look at your text message and you let your text message determine what's going to happen next instead of you and your schedule determining what's going to happen next. So Elaine, if you want to know what's the most important thing, in my opinion, what's the most important priority every day for an agent, don't say lead generation, it's following a schedule. It's making the decision every day to do the next right thing, following a schedule. Hope it helps. All right, Lisa. What's the best way to incorporate some of the fantastic ideas that I hear on the morning call and from Zoom meetings into my business without overwhelming myself? Okay, this is one we hear a lot, Lisa, and so I'm so glad you asked it. You know, many of you who are watching this, you get on our Pivot Shift Ahead daily mastermind call. We do it every day at 8 o'clock Eastern. And then a lot of you are part of my private mastermind community, Inspire. We meet every Tuesday afternoon at noon Eastern. And there's a plethora of ideas. You go to events. We're having our event coming up here in a couple of weeks, and you go to events. You go to family reunion. Maybe you're in coaching. You go to stuff in your office and get all these ideas. And then it's like, I don't even know where to start. Happens a lot. And so then, in the absence of knowing where to start, you actually implement nothing, and all you do is become a collector of great ideas. And then someday you're going to have this antique store of great ideas that you never implemented. And so how do we do this? Well, I learned this from Dave Jenks, and Dave Jenks is just a legend, right, in our Keller Williams family, and I miss him so much. And he taught me this one time when going to family reunion. He said, James, just make a spreadsheet. Just get out a little spreadsheet. Now, I'm not a spreadsheet person, but this is only 3 columns or 4 columns, so it's really simple. The first thing to do is just list the ideas. All the things you heard, all the stuff you heard, just list them one after another after another. Have a running list of all the ideas that you hear on morning mastermind calls, on Inspire calls, when you go to events. Just have a running list. He said, and then in the next column, you're going to have a score of 1 to 10 for importance. Hey, you just got a great idea. How important is it for your business or your life? Scale of 1 to 10. 1, it's not that important. 10, it's extremely important. Then this next column is ease of implementation. How easy would it be for me to implement this idea, this strategy, this system, this tool? Scale of 1 to 10. 1 is low, 10 is high. 1, it's not easy at all. 10, it's extremely easy. And then the last column is you just multiply the 2 scores. So let's say it was a 10 in importance, and it was a 5 in ease of implementation. Well, then that scored 10 times 5, right, would be 50. But if you had something else that was, say, a 10 in importance, but a 10 in ease of implementation, 10 times 10 is 100, you'd implement that first. So whatever's closest to 100 is what you kind of implement and strategize first. Keep a running list. Lisa, I hope that helps you a lot. I appreciate Dave Jenks for teaching that to me. Anna said, what can I do to protect my schedule? Now, this is fun. This is the second time that schedule has come up on here. She says, what can I do to protect my schedule? Because sometimes I am not following what's in my calendar. All right, so if we go back to what I talked about with Elaine, we said, hey, look, we've got to just make the decision that we're going to follow our schedule, that's the most important thing, that allows us to work from a sense of priority. And Anna says, what do I do to protect it? Because sometimes I put stuff in there and I don't show up for it. This is common, and here's what I tell you. You have a decision to make. You have to decide, are you going to do what you're supposed to do? Now, one of the joys of doing what we do every day in here is getting to meet some amazing, talented, ridiculously awesome people. One of those people we met is a guy named Brad Stulberg. Brad Stulberg. I interviewed him inside of Pivot Shift Ahead. His book is called The Practice of Groundedness. I interviewed him on Pivot Shift Ahead, about a little 15-minute interview. You can watch it at jamesdshaw.com. It was on about a week and a half ago. And then he did a full hour keynote with us for our Inspire community. He's going to be at Elevate, our in-person event here in less than 2 weeks. And he said something in our Inspire call that I want to share with you that I think is really helpful, because, again, I'm saying, hey, if you want to follow your schedule, you have a decision to make. Are you willing, Anna, are you willing to follow it? Like, will you make the decision to follow it? Here's what Brad said. He said, we think that we need to feel good and motivated to get going, but it's often the other way around. In other words, you look at your schedule. Oh, I don't really, you know what? I don't really feel like doing that. I'm going to come back to that later. I don't feel like lead gen right now. I need to go work on this. He says, we often think we need to feel good and motivated to get going, but it's the other way around. Usually motivation follows action, he says. He says we all lose motivation, but when we show up and get started, motivation follows. Motivation follows taking action. You don't need to feel good to get going, but you do need to get going to give yourself a chance to feel good. And that's what gives you the chance to turn around. And it comes down to this. You have to decide what's most important to you. You have to decide what are you going to show up to do. When you ignore something on your calendar, that's your decision. You've decided that you're not going to do that thing. And I think the question you have to ask yourself is, are those little decisions moving you closer to the life that you want and the desires that you have, or are they holding you back from those things? Make the decision. And you know, we found that action, right, leads to, you know, a positive thought. We don't feel like doing something, but when we do it, we feel good. So you know what's on your schedule. You know why it's there. You've got to make the decision. You just look at it and go, it's no different than the challenge I put myself on that I've told many of you about, that minimum of 10 minutes a day running. There are days like today. I don't feel like it. It's dark and it's cold. It's 51 degrees. I know some of you are laughing, but in Florida in March, 51 degrees, it might as well be 10. But I got out and did it anyway because I've made a commitment. I made a decision. And I looked at my schedule, and that window this morning was the only time I could go. It's hard. But you know what? I feel better right now knowing that, check, that's off the list. I've done the next right thing. And I hope that helps. Marcy says, there is so much information given on Pivot Shift Ahead. For someone new to the community, where should they start? And then what do they do to follow up? It's easy. I think this is easy. What I would do to start is this. Put the daily mastermind call at 8 o'clock Eastern on your schedule and show up every single day. Now, there's so many people in this community that don't even know that it exists, and that's okay. I'm not mad at you. I don't take attendance, and it's fine. We have 111,000 people who are members of Pivot Shift Ahead. Facebook will tell you how many of those people are active in any given month, and we have got about 70 to 75,000 active users every month. We have about 3,000 who participate in the morning call, and we have about 1,100 who watch it live. So the rest of you are watching the recording. I don't care if you're on it live or you're watching the recording, but I would participate in the daily mastermind call. It is free, and there are great ideas shared in there. Now, some calls are better than others. Not every call is a home run, but you get one nugget a day out of that, and that gets your mindset going in the right direction. That gets you then in a process of kind of following a schedule and doing the next right thing. I tell you, you'll be in good shape. So, daily mastermind call. You can watch it inside Pivot Shift Ahead, which is probably where you're watching this, or you can join on Zoom, pivotshiftcall.com. It's better on Zoom, but you do whatever works for you. Pivotshiftcall.com. Zoom room opens at 7:30. Call starts at 8. 8 calls over at 8:20 Eastern. Then you move on with your day. All right. Hope that helps you. Marcy. Excuse me. I'd watch our Wednesday sessions like this one right here every Wednesday, about a 20-minute interview with somebody who's totally knocking it out of the park, except today you got to listen to me for 20 minutes. And then if you're not an Inspire member, I would join Inspire. I think people say, well, I don't want to spend money. Well, okay. FSBOs don't want to spend money either. Linda asked, if you could do one thing differently than you've done since March of 2020, what would it be? I think I would have been willing to accept how valuable this community is to so many people before I did. It took me 2.5 years to figure that out. Because see, I just got up every day, turned on my camera, and did my thing, and talked to people, and led the mastermind call, and connected with others. I discounted its value to the community for a long time. I didn't recognize how important it was for so many people and how it helped so many of you get through, especially early on in the pandemic, and then again, especially now as the market is changing. It makes me think of how we interact with our databases. I think we underestimate the value we add to our database. When we call people on our database and we don't hear back, see, because I get on the mastermind call, I don't hear from most of you, right? We talk, but there might be 10 or 11 people who share on the call, which means there's 950, 980 people, and then if you count the recording, another 1,500 people. So there's 2,900 people who are not responding to what we're saying on the call. More than that, almost 3,000 people who are not responding to what we say in the call. The response is internal. I don't hear it. I don't get the feedback. I don't see how it's impacting them. I hear from a handful, but I don't hear from all of you. And so I don't know the value. And it makes me think of how your database is. So many of you reach out to your database and never hear back from them and wonder if you're adding value to them. And then 3 years later, they call you and say, come list my house. You can't stop communicating with people because you don't hear back from them. Just because you don't hear them doesn't mean they don't hear you. So we have a responsibility to keep going. And if you go back early on, those of you who've been with us 3 years, you remember that one day I got on and said, this is the last week. And why? Because I was done. I thought I had done everything I could do inside of here, and I had no idea the impact that this call was having on people because I didn't hear from you. And so I said, I think we've done everything we can do. It's time to shut it down. And I wouldn't have done that, reflecting on that now. I would not have taken that break. I discounted it for a long time, and now I understand the value, and I think the lesson is, same thing applies to you. Your database needs to hear from you too. Linda, thank you. Great question. Okay, another Linda says, give us one piece of advice or nugget for each of the DISC profiles that would impact us doing the next right thing. Okay, this is a great question, because our DISC behavioral profiles, your DISCs, we have strengths in some areas and weaknesses in others. And Linda says, well, what would help us do the next right thing? Because our natural behavior sometimes prohibits us from moving forward in the things we want. So there's a section in Shift that Gary talks about this, and that's always stood out to me. And he puts us in kind of two groups of people. You have your action first people and your study first people. And if I think about the DISC behaviors, your D's and your I's are probably your action first people. Your D's put their head down, get after it. That tends to be me. Just put your head down and go. Your I's are social and want to keep moving. So your D's and I's tend to be your action first people. And then you have your study first people, which is your S and C behaviors, the slow and steady for the S and the data-oriented, detail-oriented for the C's. So you've got action first and study first people. And here's what Gary says. He says, for action first people like me, he said, what you should probably do is maybe commit to a time of study before taking action. What action first people do, like me, is we get after it, which may cause us to make mistakes or miss challenges that may show up. And I do that all the time. I always have an idea and I just want to go implement it, and then I got to clean up a mess later. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. Pivot Shift Ahead was an idea that I just implemented without a lot of thought. And yet then I have other times that I implement an idea and like, it's not a good one. So you commit to a time of study first to go do the next right thing. For your S and C's, those of you who are study first people, put a limit on how much time you'll study before you'll take action. And let's just use lead gen as an example. So you've said you're going to go lead gen, but you're worried. What am I going to say? And I need to look up everything and know everything about them, so I don't say anything that's dumb. And I need to know all the information about their house before I call them up. And then you call them, they don't even answer. Commit to a limit on the amount of time you'll study before you take action. So Linda, that would be my advice. Action first people, commit to a period of study before taking action. Study first people, put a limit on the time of study before you take action. Last question. Shamika asked this question. It's my favorite question. What's Inspire? Does it meet on Zoom? I love it. I'm wearing my Inspire pullover today. So when I started Pivot Shift Ahead back in March of 2020, we do this free call, meet every day, have so much fun. But people said they wanted more. They wanted to go deeper. They wanted to do more than what we could possibly do in a 20-minute call inside of a Facebook group. So I decided to create a private mastermind community. That's what it is. It's not a coaching community. I think MAPS should be doing your coaching. This is a mastermind and brainstorming community. And so I started that. Here's how it works. We meet every Tuesday, noon to 1 Eastern. We mastermind and strategize around ideas to help you move forward. One of those calls every month is some kind of keynote where we've had Brad Stolberg on, who I talked about. We've had John Acuff on that call, who wrote soundtracks. We did a whole series with Brittany Hodak on creating superfans so you could figure out how to turn your database into people who love you, all that kind of stuff. So we do that. Then we meet once a month. We break you up by production for small groups based on people in your same production level so you can work together and strategize. So, and there's so much more to it. If you want information, jamesdshaw.com, jamesdshaw.com. All right, that's it. We're out of time. I hope you enjoyed our Ask Me Anything. Thank you to everyone who submitted some questions. Put in the chat. Should we do it again? I don't know. You let me know. Should we do it again? That's it. We'll see you on the calls. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.